Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Women with Grit, where we get down to the nitty-gritty of what makes exceptional women tick in their cities. We interview dynamic women who all have one thing in common: grit. So come on in, grab a friend, grab a drink, grab some snacks, because we have a treat for you tonight. Grab anything that you would like to hold on to, because this guest is going to surely take you on a ride. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us this evening with our guest, Dr. Quinn Gentry. So my name is Sherelle Lands, and I am joined by my partner, Lee Mollett, who is on vacation tonight. So we say bon voyage to Lee, but we are still going to have fun. So take a moment to share this and to anyone that you feel could have the use of a great message tonight as we bring on our guest this evening. So go ahead and hit that like, share, or follow us online. You can find us on www.facebook.com/exceptionalwomenwithgrit, or you can find us on YouTube at www.youtube.com/@womenwithgrit. Pretty much on any and all of our platforms, you can find us at Women with Grit, or join us on our website at www.womenwithgrit.com. So we are so excited this evening to bring on the stage yet another amazing guest this evening. And I want to make sure that we have ample time for the dynamic Dr. Quinn Gentry. So give me a moment while I read to you this amazing woman's bio, okay? All right, so Dr. Quinn Gentry, affectionately known as Dr. Quinn, is the president and CEO of Messages of Empowerment Productions, LLC, where she applies her social and behavioral science expertise in public health, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, intervention development, and executive coaching. As a subject matter expert in women and girls' health, Dr. Quinn is a sought-after public health influencer, speechwriter, content developer, and motivational speaker, where she inspires audiences through a blend of education and entertainment to empower people to maximize their potential. Prior to launching her public health and management consulting practice, Dr. Quinn worked as a corporate executive for several Fortune 500 companies, including Johnson & Johnson, Kimberly-Clark, and Walmart corporations. She also served as a political intelligence officer for the Central Intelligence Agency, as well as a principal investigator, senior scientist, and research analyst on numerous programs, research, and evaluation studies at the federal, state, and local government levels. In addition, she has held teaching and behavioral research positions at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, Emory University, and Georgia State University. And in 2021, Dr. Quinn was named the Harvard Public Health Review Fellow, and she is an affiliate of RTI's International Global Gender Center. Dr. Quinn has written over 60 books, where the first 50 were penned in celebration of her 50th birthday in 2018. As a thought leader, Dr. Quinn has authored over 100 technical and scientific publications. If you guys don't give us a thumbs up or an applause for her on that, I mean, that is just amazing. And presented at top-tier professional conferences in the fields of public health, sociology, and women's studies. She also wrote, directed, and produced Divine Intervention, a monologue readings to bring awareness to the intersection of HIV, mental illness, substance abuse, domestic violence, homelessness among Black women. Dr. Quinn is a licensed minister. Most recently, she was accepted in the Harvard Divinity School with 75% tuition support, Yale Divinity School with a full scholarship and stipend, and Emory University's Chandler School of Theology, where she was named the Woodrow Fellow, Emory University's most prestigious scholarship award, which also includes full tuition and a stipend to complete her Master's of Divinity degree. She serves the community as a women's health advocate via her membership in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Inc. And when Dr. Quinn is not researching, evaluating, teaching, motivating, or implementing science, she enjoys dancing, live bands, spoken word, and creative writing. Allow me to bring to the stage Dr. Quinn. Good evening, Dr. Quinn.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. It's party time somewhere. In fact,
Yes,
Shirley, I'm giggling because we met at my 45th birthday
we
party.
did. And you were dancing, and it was so much fun. So I'm a testament that she can cut a rug. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for gracing the stage of our show tonight. And as I have already mentioned, this is really an opportunity for us to get to know you and your story. We love to hear from women like you who are doing amazing things, as your bio has already, discussed. Over 50 books, you know what I mean, and over 100 technical papers. Man, you are absolutely keeping busy.
So I like to say, writing is my superpower. Where writing
Mhm.
is anxiety for most,
Yeah.
it's a gift from God for me, and it's my superpower. So, in fact, I actually had to stop explaining and defending why, I'll rather pick up a pen and just write. And they're like, "Oh, what you working on? What you doing?" I'm like, "This is therapy for me."
Yeah. I understand that as well. Yes, I love, love, love to write. So I love to start the show by allowing you to share a little bit more about yourself to our guests. So our first question is typically tell us your unique story of grit.
There are so many storytelling moments about my life, and I guess, to start out with what the bio doesn't say, right? It doesn't, in the bio, what I did not share is, well, I shared it, but what was not read, because I share freely, is this, as we say in the Church of God in Christ, this is my story, this is my song. And so my story is really that I am the product of a teenage mom, and who gave me to my grandmother at the age of 3. And from then on, I think that that was the beginning of my grit, right? And it's interesting, when I was like, okay, what is our definition of grit? I'm looking for it everywhere. And I would say that my story of grit, from that point of being born to a teen mom and being given to my grandmother, I would say that my acronym for grit would be get real involved in transformation, right? If you don't want to be here, the proverbial story of what happens to young people born to teen moms, then you better get some grit about yourself. You better get real involved in transforming your life. And so that is, when you read my bio, you're reading these moments in my history where I rewrote my story. I rewrote my story in terms of from being made to go to a high school that I really did not want to go to, figuring out, just, okay, if I got to be here, what am I going to do to pass the time? And pass the time in terms of getting myself set up for success. But when it was time to go, when I tell you that I used the collegiate experience as a time, I call it my running away from home moment, right? And I left here like, when I have got to get out of this space, because everything about at that moment, right, when you're a teenager, I mean, and then I learned later that it doesn't matter your socioeconomic level. Everybody thinks that their childhood was the worst ever. But so, in looking back, there were some really, really good moments. But at that moment, the one thing that I was looking forward to is getting away from that inner city environment. And think about it. I was coming along. I was leaving for high school, going to college in 1986. And that's when crack and HIV/AIDS had hit the neighborhood, and we're like, what are these phenomena? And every time I would come back home on breaks, it's like one of those other things would have taken over my playgrounds, or the people that I was associated with in high school. And it's like, okay, it never, moved far away from my brain that somebody's got to take on this particular fight. And so, even as I made my way through undergraduate and got an MBA and went to work in Fortune 500s, and just was destined, I love dressing up. I even took on a part-time job. Talk about grit. I took on a part-time job even when I was an intelligence officer for the CIA, to work at Casual Corners because I wanted my wardrobe to be just right when I walked in to do my briefings, right? And so even with that, just I think my story is that finding every moment to make a transformation to become the woman that I am. So even with Michelle Obama's book, my middle name is Michelle, so um uh becoming, that really resonates with me, that at every turn in your life, no matter what you think your set of circumstances are, you can take control of that situation, take control of whatever resources you've been given and turn them into something, and that's what, to me, that's what grit is. And those are just nuggets of my story. So as we go along, I'm sure I'll throw some more things in there. But is there anything in particular that you want me to zero in on?
I love the fact. No, I mean, that was extremely great. Get involved in your transformation. I love that. That's about taking ownership. That's about not accepting what was handed. That's about, if you see something that you want to move the needle on, you change it, right? And
Right.
you talk about the space of really being empowered. So,
And
Dr.
I think I'm in an authentic place to say that, one that grew up on, welfare, food stamps. You know what I'm saying? A
Mm,
grandmother who bought me a clarinet with a SSI. She didn't even have enough money to get Social Security. SSI is a whole nother level of support for those over 60 or 65 that don't even have enough money in Social Security, so they get SSI. But making sure that I was in dance programs and had an instrument to play. And
mm,
so, yeah, so if learning from, and this is one thing just made me think of. um I didn't even, my grandmother didn't even have my birth certificate to send me to kindergarten.
mm,
She had a fourth grade education. She had to teach me kindergarten at home. And then finally, my birth certificate shows up in time for me to go to first grade. When I get to first grade, they
mm.
test me. I'm already reading on a ninth grade level in first grade
That's
because of
awesome.
my fourth grade grandmother giving me
That's
the funny
awesome.
papers, of what we would call the comic strips,
Mm-hmm.
and making me write things out and speaking things and talking to her. And so there's something about, just really um, whatever environment you're in, there's something in that environment, some resource that you can use to
Mm-hmm.
turn yourself from a victim status to a victor status.
And I love the fact that you talked about that. And even hearing the story of your grandmother and how the circumstances surrounding you did not define, your aptitude. And taking what she gave and continuing to build upon it sets you out to be even farther ahead and more advanced than if you were in the traditional school system at that space. And I think
Right.
that that definitely speaks to it. Speaking of your grandmother, but what or who would you say are the people who have defined you or inspired you? I'll say inspired you along the way.
I was just listening to Deborah Roberts, and she just wrote a book about teachers and how teachers inspired her. And she um, um, went back to her old, I think it was high school, and the librarian, and she gave the librarian kudos. And that was actually just either yesterday or this morning where she did that segment. And one of the things that resonated with me with that was, it took me back. It's like, okay, if I had to write that same book, who would I write that book about? And
Mm-hmm.
it was not any one particular teacher in uh but there's this group of teachers, and I like to call them those. At that time, I felt, as I look back, it was this group of teachers who came from Morris Brown. And I do hope you all would slice this piece and send it over to Morris Brown as they do a hard reset, and let them know, hey, I may not have graduated, have gone to
What?
Morris Brown, but I'm Morris Brown ish, because I all of my teachers, they, the ones that ran the dance teams, the ones that did the after school theater, the ones that put on all of the programs, who pulled me in and said, you're going to speak, you're going to be in this play, who all found these other gifts and talents, lurking just around the knowledge and the gift the gift of a gifted student, all these other gifts that were just beneath the radar, and pulling those all in. So I would say it would be my teachers, who were Morris Brown graduates, who made sure that the students that they taught in elementary school had the best of the best, and they were enthused about working in inner city schools. So if I had to name them, name one, it would probably be Miss Washburn. But there were so many others.
I love that. And I love the fact that, it's the whole aspect of the collective. And you talked about how you had people who saw something in you and who gave you a chance, who gave you a dream. In a couple of our shows, we talked about how leaders often need a mentor, a sponsor, a coach, a network, and those in terms of really cultivating success and cultivating themselves as they propel or move into a new space of life. Now, when you think about your unique story of grit, and when you think about the area that you chose to go into, which is, public health and being able to address public health concerns amongst African Americans and amongst women, what would you say is one of the most common issues that you see that we should be aware of?
Post-traumatic stress.
Mm.
Post-traumatic stress, uh, from a plethora of other issues. And so that means, and stress or trauma impacts us differently. Some of resilience is this, unique thing. And we have it, but we don't know how to pull upon it. So I would say, really listening to understand what level of social or health or economic ills people are facing, and how that continues to traumatize them, or have faced in the past, and how that continues to traumatize them. And I always say, when I push buttons, when I'm coaching, and when I push those buttons to try to get people to live up to their full potential, it's almost like the post-traumatic stress oozes out, and I realize I've touched wounds that never healed. And that's when I say, okay, you don't need a coach right now. You need a clinical therapist, and perhaps even some medication.
Mm.
So,
That's deep, because a lot of people do come to coaches thinking that that's the space that they need to start with. And I'm sure in speaking with you and the fact that you're able to touch on two areas, the coaching, but then you have the experience from a behavioral understanding perspective to be able to say that the wounds haven't been healed and the wounds are deeply rooted. But I also feel that sometimes people are operating in a space of not even knowing that there's
right.
the level of self-awareness to know that, ooh, okay, this is a trigger or this is a trauma that needs to be resolved. So how would someone be able to tap into that? And I guess it's kind of tapping into the subconscious mind, is to say, okay, this is something that might need some additional help or support. That's a good one, Dr. Quinn.
Well, here's the thing with that. It's a catch 22,
Hmm.
because if people are not recognizing that their current behaviors are dysfunctional, it's probably because they found a way to normalize whatever that is as a coping skill.
Hmm.
And so, the
Normalize
last thing
dysfunction.
I want to do is snatch someone's coping mechanism from them and leaving them uncovered, because now we got other problems. And so that's why, it's a real tender and ginger walk. Um, and it's not an either or. I think we can benefit from having all of them. I have two life coaches, and I have a therapist. I probably need two therapists too, but that's a whole nother
We need,
and they do
yeah,
different things at different times.
right,
And
right. And there's
but
nothing
my
wrong with
coach,
that.
and I think of it as, I watch a lot of football,
Yeah.
and I think of it as, when you have a head coach, and that head coach is putting people in the game, and if someone gets injured on a play, you know you
Yeah.
send a medical doctor out there to make a recommendation as to whether or not they are physically able to go back into that game, or whether or not they need to be off, go to the sideline, or whether or not they need to be packed up and go to the back and get worked on out of the sight of everybody else. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a life analogy that we can use. There are some things we're trying to handle, some
Yeah.
healing, some issues right there in the corporate boardroom or the C-suite. And this is one that you need to go into the a therapy session for, you know, so that you're strong enough to handle a lot of the stuff that's coming to you that is unfair. Let's talk about that. And some unfair. You're going to take some unfair hits, but sometimes we misjudge unfair hits because we haven't healed from trauma, and we think everything is offensive, right? Everybody is picking on us, and so if we don't heal that trauma, we can't distinguish between what is true uh, 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 injustice or uh, microaggression and what is really our unhealed wounds.
I think that that's, man, there's so much to unpack even there. But when you think about like your journey and what you're hitting on is a very important topic because it impacts the way that we have relationships. It impacts us, and sometimes to your point, even subconsciously. So taking the time to really tap into understanding why things trigger or understanding the nature of why something affects you a certain way, right? So I know, like for
Mhm.
me, if something bothers me, I take what I call as a pause moment, and I'm like, okay, what am I experiencing, and why do I feel the way that I do? And is it external to me, or is there something that is being pressed within me that hasn't, like you said, been healed or hasn't been addressed? And if so, let me take a look at it. But it's, without taking that pause moment, we continue to just barrel through and continue to
Mhm.
push. Now,
Mhm.
I want to ask you a question specifically as it relates to this topic, but even more so as it relates to you. When you think about your journey and when you think about how you have gone throughout your life, have you ever experienced anything that you would consider to be a self limiting belief? And if so, how did you overcome it? Or if you're still working through it, how are you overcoming it?
A self-limiting belief. Well, I
Mm,
mean, sociologically, I have not been protected very well from my daddy issues, and
yeah.
so not having a father figure in the early stages, in the sense that I understand now what I'm missing by really understanding what the father's role should be in the family. I do realize that there are times when I overcompensate.
Mm,
So I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I go alpha female, not
okay. Yeah.
not limiting myself, but I go to the other extreme and I take on the testosterone that should have been passed on to me through protection from a male. And so that's probably, put offish in terms of male energy. So, through therapy, I probably accepted that I'm gonna walk this journey intimately alone, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with that after menopause.
Saying, yes, ma'am.
Okay with that because I'm not going to. I've been through that. In fact, Sherelle, the one thing that you don't know is we talked about my 45th birthday, and that was the night that I was announcing the big Dr. Quinn Motivates had
I
the
remember.
beautiful butterflies. That's when I unveiled my all of my stuff, display stuff, and I had the book ready. Get home that night, my birthday, my 45th birthday, I'm unveiling my Dr. Quinn Motivates brand. My ex says, I want a divorce because you ignored me
Oh, wow.
tonight
On your birthday. Wow.
on my birthday. So here I am on my birthday night trying to apologize for not being available to this narcissist on my birthday on the night that I'm unveiling this. And that was the moment when I said, I've got to take back my power. I am
Mhm.
giving this person too much power over my life. And it was at that moment where what where I was being so vulnerable and walking on eggshells. And I said, okay, I looked in the mirror and I had a conversation with me. And I said, if you don't take back your power tonight, you will never take it back. Do not cry. Just say, okay, where are the papers? Let's go. And that was that. And I enjoyed the rest of my birthday weekend, knowing that that was the end of me walking on wells. When I tell you it was a relief and a release,
Mm-hmm.
woo, I mean, that I cannot even. Now, I don't propose, or suggest people get divorces, because there are some things that can be worked through.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was, if anything, that was my space of being belittled, because my significant other at that time took advantage and manipulated my belief in God and my sincere desire to want to take scripture at its word,
Yeah.
in terms of being humble, being submissive. And it's like, wait a minute, you're just using me. You're manipulating me,
Mm-hmm.
and you're backing me into a corner, and I'm downplaying my gifts. And God gifted me, and I'm downplaying that to make you feel more of a man.
Yeah.
And that, so if anything, the belittling or the self-belief came when I invited this person who should not have been in my environment to to be in that space.
Wow, that's powerful. And again, another one to really talk about impacting and unpacking. You talked about the space of being able to take back your power. So,
Yes.
so Dr. Quinn,
And that
you
was the thing. I got to say this. That was the thing for my 50th birthday, 5 years later, taking back my power. Remember, I started this saying, I love to write.
mm-hmm.
And so from 45 to 50, I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And that's why my birthday party was the ultimate book signing, where 40 books were displayed. Now, I've written 50 books. I have not published all of them, but I'm in the process now. Several of them are published and I sell them. But for me, the therapy, the freedom was taking back my power to write, unapologetically.
As you were speaking, what came to mind is the catalyst. Sometimes, oftentimes, the catalyst of creativity is sometimes birth in catastrophe or something that
Yes.
feels devastating. But it's how you looked at it. And it's really, I see the synergy even from your earlier years in life of not not staying current in the environment that you were in, but really rising out of it, deciding to do something different and truly moving and walking in that. So that really definitely resonates with me. I want to talk now with everything that you have said. I can see the lineage or even the progression to creating your organization, Messages of Empowerment. But what was the birth of that? What was that like? What made you decide to go into starting a production specifically that you have coined as Messages of Empowerment?
Messages of Empowerment production was born out of this space where I felt like every time I got a job, corporate job even, I was being boxed in. And so I literally wrote down, I'm gifted in this space, this, and it was like four core practice areas, right? Now, how do you take these gifts and how do you make them practical where you can earn a living and do some work that you're passionate about? And so, Message of Empowerment is productions is a space where there are four parts of my gifts. If you look at the program evaluation, that's coming out of my and program evaluation and research. That's the science me, right? The researcher, the sociologist, and then there's the intervention development. That's the social entrepreneur, the innovative person, the marketer, the brander, all of those. And then there's the organizational effectiveness slash educating of providers, where we do continued education and all of these things. That's the educator. And then there's the entertainment. Remember, I told you I grew up in the arts and in dance and theater. And so, edutainment, how do you take all of these heavy topics of trauma and homelessness and substance abuse and mental health, and how do you package them in such a way that you're not re traumatizing audiences, but you are using nuggets of entertainment to educate them on how to take these, how to a perspective on these heavy issues, if you will. So no company, right, would allow me to work in all of those four areas freely. So I had to create my own lane so that I could move in all of my gifts.
I love it. If it
And
doesn't
it'll be
exist,
18 years in August. So I got something coming up in August for 18. So if you need me to come back in August, just let me know.
fantastic. Okay, I'll hold you to that.
All right.
And I could learn a thing or two from you about, like, I mean, if you guys have ever seen Dr. Quinn and how she celebrates, I mean, just a vibrant light that you are. Oh my goodness. I mean, I can't even think like that. Like, I usually have to call someone and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Like, can you help me? Because that part of my brain is just needs some cultivation, you know? But I think
So
that
it was
it's
funny you
really,
talk
really
about
key.
celebration. Last um uh July in Orlando,
Mhm.
I invited my sorority sisters to come and help me celebrate my 35th anniversary. And it was a pajama party, like house party style.
I love it.
Literally, you know what the highlight for me was?
What's that?
When the police showed up giggling, talking
I can believe it. I
about,
can surely believe
I'm
it.
like, I didn't expect this to be no these little ladies in here partying in their pajamas. He said, "Well, if I go and tell them that y'all gonna be done at midnight, would that?" I was like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sorry," but that was like, yes, you know.
I love it. See, you know, my folks have to, you know, tap me and say, okay, this is something to celebrate. So we're celebrating 10 years at least within my organization, and I got some things planned for November. But I literally just go, okay, here you go. Can you
Well,
work it
see,
out for me? Because, you know, I don't
but
do a good
Sherelle, let me
job
tell
at
you
it.
though. Now, let me tell you though, what you see
Uh-huh.
is the product, the consequences of therapy. In that, when I
Mhm.
want to feel sorry for myself, nobody ever celebrated my birthday growing up. We didn't go on vacation,
Yeah.
and the therapist looked at me and said, "Well, you can now,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she gave me permission to celebrate me.
That's
So
good. Yes.
I celebrate, and in fact, for my 55th birthday in August, I am going to Paris. So I'm going to Paris,
Awesome.
and I'm doing a Paris week photo shoot. I have a
Mhm.
designer that's going to take me shopping in Paris, and then the next day we're going to get a makeup artist, and I'm going to do a photo shoot at all of the spaces. So you know, yeah. So this comes from me taking back the power of not being a childhood victim of
Yeah.
those people who should have been, celebrating my birthday, or who should have been responsible for those tender moments. They missed them, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna miss anymore. I'm
There
not,
you go.
right? I'm not
I
gonna miss
love
them.
that. I mean, like
I'm gonna show up for me.
yes, you're oozing from the space of ownership and owning your life and owning your experiences, regardless of where you are, regardless of what the circumstances are that surround you. I think it's really, really phenomenal. I love it. I'm telling you guys, if you ever get to experience one of Dr. Quinn's parties, it's amazing. It really is a lot of fun. Okay, so believe it or not, we are more than halfway through our time. It goes by so fast. It really, really does. So I'm going to pull you backstage, give you an opportunity to grab some water. But I have a question for you that I would love for you to tackle when we come back. And that
Okay.
question is, when you think about your life and when you think about your journey, what is one word that you believe would be the theme of your life? And then to be able to share that. So take a moment and I'll bring you right back up.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all so much again for tuning in to Women with Grit. I tell you what, if you are just now tuning in, make sure that you stay through the end and then you catch the replay because we have none other than Dr. Quinn Gentry on tonight. And I mean, when I tell you just the nuggets that she's dropped in this first stanza of time is just phenomenal. Get real involved in your transformation. That is her definition of grit. Get real involved in transformation. That's about taking your life back, taking your power back, recognizing that if you want to shift or a change, that you have to get real and you have to get involved in your own transformation. So go ahead and leave your questions in the chat function. You know, at this specific segment, as we love to do, is engage our audience. So if you all have any questions for Dr. Quinn Gentry, feel free to leave them in the chat function. And again, you can catch us here on Facebook, on YouTube. You can also catch us on our website, www.womenwithgrit.com, where we interview, again, dynamic women around the world who are truly changing their communities. So again, you guys can definitely check us out, and we want to make sure that we get a chance to say hello and thank you to you all for joining in. So let's see, who do we have on? We got Leanne, is it Liani? Liani is joined from Atlanta. Hey Lee, thank you for joining in. Doug from East Point, thank you so much for joining in. Trilany, hey Trilany, how are you? Thank you for joining in tonight. Sharonda, one of our weeklies. Hey Sharonda, how are you? Thank you all for joining in. For those of you who are just, this is your first time, be sure to catch a lot of the replays because we have dynamic guests on our show. So again, I want to make sure we take an opportunity to thank you guys. So leave your city and state where you're tuning in from in the chat, as well as any questions that you have for Dr. Quinn, and we will be sure to bring you online. Hey, Sharonda, yes, we are enjoying the energy and vibes here as well. I'm telling you. I mean, and I would love to say that this is the only time, but no, this is how Dr. Quinn is. She is just a bundle of joy, and her energy is contagious, and it is vibrant, and it is truly, truly an essence of just a life that she chooses to live now. All right, so enough about me. Let's go ahead and bring her back up for the second stanza. Welcome back, Dr. Quinn.
Thank you. So I heard that you said Leanna from Atlanta. So that's my aunt. That's my maternal aunt. That's the baby of the family who was living with my grandmama when I moved in with my grandmama. So we were raised more like big sister and little sister. Hey, Auntie Lee.
She said, hey. So definitely thank you for tuning in. I love it. I love that. I really, really love that energy. Okay, so tell us the one word that describes the theme of your life.
It's interesting. I'm going to say this word right after I just did a shout out to my auntie because she tried to keep me from being this word, but I fought her tooth and nail to be this word. And the theme for my life is disruptor.
Mm.
I did not say destructive. I said disruptor.
Mm-hmm.
And I meant that thing. I mean, anything that was in my way, and I disrupted it. You try to box me into one of the worst performing high schools in the Atlanta public school system, and I disrupted that. I found a way to go to Israel as an exchange student. I found a way to be the valedictorian, to be the top science student, the top social science student, winning fairs. So I mean, they wanted me to go to stay in Atlanta and go to a college in Atlanta, and I was like, no, no, college is supposed to be the great escape. I disrupted that. I taught my auntie. I don't know if she's on. I did send her the link. My other auntie, the oldest aunt. So like, the oldest aunt was named Aunt Mary. I was like, you got to get me to Texas Christian University. She gassed up the car, threw everybody in it, and we rode out all the way from Atlanta to Texas. And she was like, we'll be back to get you when you graduate. Bye. And so, just I mean, everywhere I go, I find a way to figure out how to be innovative, how to be creative, how to disrupt the norm. And I think that's what makes me a great behavior interventionist, because when people come to work with me, I disrupt dysfunction. I call it what it is, and it's not always pleasing. It's hard to hear some of the things that I have to say as a trained behavior scientist, but I'm gifted at what I do. And when I unpack people, when I unpack the layers and layers of dysfunction, I overlay it with love and hope. And that is the message, that's the essence of messages of empowerment. When I unpack all of the foolishness and boil it down to its essence, I try to repackage you with things that are more suitable for your journey, more suitable for you to reach your full potential. Now, if you're talking, I can't hear it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Okay.
said, I said, I wrote down disrupting dysfunction, right? The space of being able to create change and shape shift and make things better than they were. So, as a behavioral scientist, one, why that specific profession? What made you decide to delve into that field?
So, first of all, growing up the way I grew up, I didn't even know what a behavior scientist was until I
Mm-hmm.
became a behavior scientist. That's crazy, right? Right. I knew what I liked. I knew what I was good at.
Yeah.
And I trusted the process. I trusted that there was going to be jobs, paying jobs, careers in the areas that I was good at. And what I mean by that, Sherelle, when I was coming along, right in the late '80s, mid '80s, they were, the job market was saying, hey, you need to go and major in information technology, computer science, computer engineering, and all this. I had
Mm-hmm.
just struggled through math to be the
Oh.
valedictorian in my class. And if I didn't have to take an extra math class, I wasn't going to do it. And I was like, okay, I'm good at writing history. I mean, I can
Yeah.
remember everything, good or bad. I can remember the
Mm-hmm.
facts about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I know every
See?
little detail. And it's like, where are the jobs where you get paid for that? Oh, it's law. And so, I'm like, okay, law, teaching, historian, all of that. But when I went to work for the CIA,
Mm-hmm.
as a political intelligence officer, my training was with the behavior scientist groups. Like, how are
Interesting.
leaders behaving? What are they doing? What are they saying? What's their public life like? What's their private life like? What's their secret life like? Ooh, that's the taboo part.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, what do they like to do? Where are they vulnerable? So I was like, okay, that was interesting to me. And you get to write about it. Like, you're not just analyzing and doing it. And then it was like, okay, now that's used to sort of exploit these people for their behavior weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
But with the spiritual gifts and calling, I
Yeah.
gotta find a way to get to the side where you are unpacking all of these vulnerabilities, and then you're helping people to repackage themselves for good, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
exploiting all of these behaviors for our benefit as a nation. So
Yeah.
that was sort of the turning point. Even when I was in corporate, I always worked in new business development, where it was, what are consumers, consumer behavior, how are consumers behaving around this product, and what are our opportunities to exploit that, to make them buy
Mm.
more of that because of
Yeah.
how humans behave.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't feel good either. So
Right.
then I found my way to, all right, who are the humans who have experienced the worst of the worst that humanity can experience
Mm.
and need to be pulled back up. And that's where I found my swing lane in terms of using my behavioral science skills to help people build up from hitting rock bottom. And how do you re-emerge? How do you find your way back into society? How do you reinvent yourself?
Mm.
So that's the work that
So
I
I
do
want to
now.
put my kickstand down right there when you talk about
Yes.
the space of how to reinvent yourself and be able to pull yourself up, because so many people are having to do it, especially coming out of COVID and being able
Mhm.
to, in this space now, you're having to reinvent yourself. So what would you say is like one tip or maybe two, a few things that people can do when it comes to trying to reinvent themselves?
Well, first you can start by going and dusting off all of those vision boards you have, because that's what you really want in life, and turning those visions into action, right? And turning on and just writing action steps and making it plain. There's the vision. Now you got to just make it plain. And I think the connection between the vision board, writing out the action steps, is habits. Habits. Now you got to get in the habit of connecting the vision and the action. And what's in the middle of that? Other people's problems. Part of
Mm,
our issues is we feel good about ourselves when we are solving other people's problems, because it takes your mind off of what you need to be working on.
mm-hmm. Say that.
So, right. And so if you could just focus on getting your vision off the board into an action plan, and then creating some daily habits around that. That's what behavior
Mhm.
scientists do. And that's where my coaching piece comes in.
Yeah.
Holding you accountable for what you said you were going to do. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
create the vision board. I didn't create the action plan. I didn't even tell you what your daily habits should be. But I am capable of holding you accountable for all that you put together in your own way.
Mm. So, how important would you say it is for someone to have someone like you, a coach, to help hold them accountable to the things that they said is important to them?
A lot of people, it's very important, but here's the problem with that. You know what ends up happening? I end up becoming being in uh on cryptic Facebook messages. I'm getting rid of all the toxic friends in my life. You see what I'm saying?
Uh,
Because I'm holding you accountable and you don't want it,
yeah.
then I become the toxic one, because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or the one that's showing off because I'm moving on. You get all of these sort of, so I've learned to keep my inner circle small. And honestly, I'm probably codependent with my inner circle, because I
Uh-huh.
don't hold them accountable for nothing. I just let them be who they are. But I think that the universe, that because of that, my inner circle is made up of people who already get that, and
Mm-hmm.
who are in that, moving in the right direction anyway. Um, it's people who are attached to me in other ways. um I didn't attach them, they're attached to me in other ways that I think really hate on me in that sense. So I learned to let people be themselves. And I also learned that my rock bottom for you, where I think you're gonna pick up and start changing your life around, doesn't have anything to do with what you think it is. There are so many basements and trap doors in the rock bottoms that I thought that people would go, oh, I'm like, oh, they're gonna fix it. They getting ready to get it together after that. And it's like, no, they doubled down on crazy. They doubled down on crazy and found a way to make it work for them at that level. And so I just learned to say, if that's working for you, it's working for me. And I also learned to keep my money in my pocketbook, and be like, you don't need my money to struggle, like to do what you're doing. And I learned this phrase that my grandmama used to say: don't throw good money after bad. And I also started reading the Bible more and realized that Jesus didn't walk around with a pocketbook full of money, solving people's problems by, giving money. He either told them, this is what you got to do, this is what you need to be, right? Or this is what I need you to believe. Change your mind, do something with your hands, or just sit still and pause a minute. Stand still. Let me do the work. But what he didn't say is, Dr. Quinn, get in there and fight this battle for this person. So I had to start understanding that a lot of people who were hating me hated me because I was actually jumping in, doing their work, and then trying to hold them
Mm-hmm.
accountable for my work on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so similar line, at least for me, I'm on the side of business and I help a lot of organizations in the same respect. but I have this one fine line, which is one, I will not fight you to help you, and not
Right.
that's the one thing, which doesn't mean that there that I don't want to help or anything like that. But I also recognize that when you're delivering a message, sometimes we got to understand where a person is in their ability to receive it. It just might be a seed,
Right.
and it may take time for that seed to germinate before someone's really ready, and that's okay. You know, whether you're ready to receive it now or later, it is a-okay. But to your point, if you push too hard, then people begin to resent the fact that, you know, it's really an aspect of holding someone
Mm-hmm.
accountable to what they
Mm-hmm.
said they wanted to do. So I appreciate you sharing that, and even your steps and tips to how someone can reinvent themselves. Okay, so I want to grab some of the questions. So again, you all, if you are joining, and feel free to leave your questions in the chat function for Dr. Quinn, and we'll be sure to bring them up. So we have a question by Sharonda Scott in Nashville. She said, "How do you start to find the first step to take in looking for your new you?" So, like, what's the first step? What's the first thing to do when you are looking to redefine yourself?
There are so many. There's no right or wrong way to start that. Just be intentional, because what's going to happen is it's not going to be any one thing that you do, but it's going to be the this series, this you know this group of steps or list of things that you want to do. Um, and it just depends on what area you're working on. So if you were to tell me, hey, I'm working on my finances, that would be, this set of truths about how to begin with financial reinvention. If you said, I want to work on my health, my physical health, there's that. And then there's career, then there's intimacy, there's relationship. One thing I will say as a behavior scientist is don't try to do them all at one time, because your body is going to crash and burn. Your body is intelligent. And that's why, when we're going to, I tell people, don't go on a diet. First of all, as Black women, we ain't going to kill ourselves for nobody. The first three words in diet are what? Die, right? We might go, we not, we going to eat. So
Yeah.
the first thing, and no matter what you're doing, tell yourself what you can do, because we think that we're not bettering ourselves if we're not um, punishing ourselves.
Mm.
So even when you're talking about life, changing to a healthy lifestyle, start walking. I can walk more. I can drink more water, as opposed to what I cannot eat. And even when you get to the point where you're phasing in what you won't eat, say, I can eat that, but I won't eat it. See, I won't eat that is more powerful than I can't. You see, I'm not gonna eat that. I won't eat that. Or I can't have that. Two different mindsets. So it's really connecting with empowering yourself to say what you will be doing in the future, and then cutting out all possibilities, or limitations that take you off that path,
Mm.
including people. Find you some new people.
That's right. Change your circle if you need to. All right. Thank you for that, Dr. Quinn. Okay, you have another question from Sharonda. She says, as a professional, how do you find
Listen,
success?
Sharonda, I'm gonna be in Nashville in June. You leave your information, because it sounds like you want a whole conversation by yourself. So
Sharonda loves these. When I tell you, I mean, this is
okay,
we
but
get
what's her question? I'm
engaged.
sorry, but I was just letting her know.
No worries at all. She said, as a professional, how do you find success in every client?
How do I, as a professional, how do I find success in every client?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I find success in every client.
Mm-hmm.
I think I discover the potential, the untapped potential in every client. They get to define success on their own.
Mm-hmm.
The work that I do, there's this spiritual and physiological principle of seed time and harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know at what point I'm entering somebody's life, whether I'm at the beginning where I'm watering the seeds and they're just being planted, or if I'm in the back end and they're being harvested. I think about that. Sherelle, if you follow me on Facebook, there's a woman out of Atlanta called Christy Sims. And she was burned unrecognizably by an intimate partner at one point, and
Wow.
she went through, all of her healing, went through all the points of the justice to put him in jail, and then she wanted to write a book about it. She went through all of that, and at the end she
Mm,
was literally maybe on the last chapter of that book. And I invited her, I paid for her to go to the Women of Power conference with me. At that
yeah.
time it was in Florida, to be my guest. And I said, and we're going to stay back for 2 days, and we're just going to have a writing camp. Like, we're going to just stay, not go back to Atlanta when everybody
Mm,
goes. When the conference is over, we're going to have that. And she sat there and she cried, and she finished that book. I was on the
mm.
harvest side. The seeds had already been planted. So I don't, and then I'm working with
Right.
somebody else who writing a book in Atlanta. I'm on the seed time with them. We're just
Mhm.
getting started, shaping the chapters. So it just depends on when people invite me into their journey of change.
That's really, really good. Thank you for that, Sharonda, and thank you for that, Dr. Quinn. Believe it or not, we're almost out of time. But before we finish and before I give the recap, I would love for you to share any pearls of wisdom that you would like to leave with our guests, any final remarks or nuggets that you would like to leave with the guests as well as how can they reach you.
Whew. Well, um, given that your brand, is about corporate women and grit in corporate America, I would say that one of the things that I speak with my mentees on, my mentees who are now who are graduating from college and going into professional careers, and I talk to them about four things: substance, style, savvy, and stick to itiveness. Substance, style, savvy, and stick to itiveness. And substance is, you got to know your stuff. You got to be smart. You've got to go in, confident that you're there because you have some intellectual training, you have some skills that have been developed, some power skills that you have that are germane to the job. But don't stop there. Become a lifelong learner. Don't wait on them to send you to a course. Go and take some courses on your own. Listen to some podcasts. Do some things that put you out and above the rest in terms of substance. And then style, that's your personal brand. What are you bringing to the table that's uniquely you? That people will recognize that that's your footprint or that's your project, even when people try to steal your ideas, steal your steal your ideas, your products, whatever it is. People say, I hear you, but it's not the way in which a Dr. Quinn or whomever you are would do that. That your personal brand has to stamp has to be on it. And then savvy is, how do you get things done? How do you connect? How do you team? Politically, are you political savvy? How do you partner with folks, and that sort of thing. And then stick to itiveness. I thought about that, Sherelle. That is the grit. Stick to it. Yeah, I mean, um, there are so many times when you're gonna want to give up, and well, if it's not working out, if it's not easy, it must not be for me. And then you start to talk yourself out of whatever it is you were trying to do, and you just look at all these signs. And I'm saying, nah, when it gets hard, stick with it. There are so many stories of people who, if they had gave up at the point where it got tough or hard, they would not be, you would not know Tyler Perry today had he not slept in that Geo Metro, right? You would not know Oprah Winfrey today had she not gone through what she went through at 13 years old. As horrible as some of these stories are, those are the stories that resonate with us when we say, that person stuck with it. They had grit. They made it work.
That's powerful. When I tell you it is powerful, it is powerful. This has been such a phenomenal time. And being able to sit with you, Dr. Quinn. So, if our guests or our viewers wanted to connect with you, how can they get a hold of you?
So I have to say, right now, I'm on Facebook, just as Quinn Gentry. They can email me at Dr. Quinn Motivates, Dr. Quinn motivates. I'm dyslexic, so I can't spell it out loud because I
Mhm.
at gmail.com. I turned when I went to, you talked about me accepting the calling and now going back to get a divinity degree. I literally turned off all of my websites so that I could hear from God without all of this noise. They're not going to come back on until August. But if someone has a question for me or wants to just, get in touch, please feel free to email me, and I promise you I will respond. Because you can see, I love to run my mouth. I love to talk to people. Like you tell teachers, my auntie Liana is on here. She can tell you the only time I got in trouble in school was running his mouth, and Miss Washburn found me something safe to do, and that was I became her student teacher helper. So yeah. And Leona used to try to dress me like a little teacher, y'all. I had my little candy shoes on and just looking cute, my little dresses on. But yeah. So
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Quinn,
thank you
for
for
gracing
having
the
me.
stage. Yes, we thank you so much for taking your time and for sharing your story. I'm going to give a quick recap and then we are going to see our guests another time. But this has been such a phenomenal hour, impactful, insightful, engaging. My goodness, thank you so very much. All right, so you guys have definitely heard Dr. Quinn, and you have heard, I mean, just the messages that have resounded. She talked about grit, and the definition that she gave was get real involved in transformation. If you are in a situation that you don't agree with or that doesn't agree with you, then get real with your transformation. Be willing to step outside of it. Be willing to change the dynamics, even if it requires you changing your environment. And know that you can rewrite your story at any single point that you decide to do so. All that's required is for you to make a decision, be consistent in your actions, and then to move from that specific place. Know that you can take control of the situation at any moment in your life. It's not about the environment, it's about what is within you, but then also what is cultivated, what you choose to cultivate. So Dr. Quinn gave the example of her grandmother and how her grandmother invested in her, and how when she decided to go back to school, she was farther along. Didn't have to do anything with the circumstances that surrounded her. It had everything to do with what was inside of her, as well as her grandmother, and what they chose to do and make out of their situation. Seek those that are comfortable and that will pour into you. Seek and embody and get with those people who see the value that is within you, who are comfortable with pulling that out of you as well. Work to heal your trauma. That comes with understanding self and being able to take a moment to understand, why do we respond the way that we do? Or if something feels offensive to you, or if you feel that everyone's attacking you, use that as a moment or an opportunity to take a step back and reassess if it's a traumatic experience that has been brought on by the post-traumatic syndrome,
Stress,
PTSD. Thank you. PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Take back your
disorder.
disorder. Okay. Disorder. And to remember to take back your power. Recognize that the power is within you, and it is only given if you choose to relinquish it. So be mindful of that. Know that oftentimes the catalyst to creativity is sometimes brought on by a place that feels like catastrophe, right? So be able to take that moment and to redefine it for yourself. Decide to pivot from it. Decide to use it to propel you into your purpose. Don't be afraid to disrupt and create change, right? So if you're in a space that again doesn't feel or feels dysfunctional, don't be afraid to be the catalyst that creates the change in those situations. Then she talked about three different tips she gave when it came to reinventing yourself. Dust off your vision board. Know what you want to achieve. Know what's important to you. Develop clear action steps to getting there, and build your habits. Remember that the measure of success is in our ability to create repetition and consistency, to do it over and over again in order to actually get it. When it comes to redefining yourself, again, identify the steps that you need to take. Tell yourself the things that you can do and focus on the can and not the can't. Remember, she talked about to accentuate that positive energy in the area and direction that you want to go in. And that has everything to do with focusing on the things that you can do and cutting out the things that are limiting, whether that's people, whether that's ideations, whether that's a mindset. But let go of those things that are limiting behaviors. And then Dr. Quinn left us with 4 nuggets that she talked about: substance, style, savvy, and having a stick to itness. Substance is really knowing your stuff, becoming a lifelong learner, knowing yourself, knowing your subject, being an expert in that specific field. Style, what do you bring to the table that is uniquely you, right? Because there is truly only one you. So spend the time to really understand what that is so that you are operating in the authenticity of yourself. Savvy, what do you get? This is really how do you get things done, and also how do you partner with people and partnering with the right people in order to move the needle forward. And then the last one she mentioned was having the stick to itness, which is also exemplifying grit and remembering to not quit, because oftentimes your success and moving to a space of significance is oftentimes on the opposite side of discomfort. I mean, what a phenomenal night that we have had. I want to make sure that we say again, thank you so much, Dr. Quinn, for gracing the stage of Women with Grit. This has truly been an inspiring and enlightening time.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed it, enjoyed it, enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So again, you all, if you're just tuning in, go catch the replay because you do not want to miss this. If you know anyone that could use this message by Dr. Quinn Gentry, please feel free to forward it to them. And until next week, we'll see you right here, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Women with Grit. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.